Bend Around the Wind by Skylia. Chapter 89, Aurelian. It was the Wasp who warned them all, the one who found Stark and Thor down on the coast. Drongo watched wordlessly as the Iron Mage fell, as the burning body of the ship hit the water and started sinking. He felt like something came to an end, like a chapter of their story was irrevocably over. He was used to stepping on a new path. He's done it many times before, but he was not sure he wanted to leave this one behind just yet. So he hoped the foreboding feeling in his gut meant something different. Juyu was firing questions his way through their comlink, but Drongo had no answers for her. They know at least that Stark was alive. Only 100 other questions remained to be answered.
How is he? Steve asked.
He's really not looking so hot,
Janet replied, and those words alone were enough to urge Drongo into action.
We're all on our way,
Drongo said immediately.
Juyu, B, come as quickly as you can and bring Hatchet if you know where he is.
He's here,
B answered.
I'll get him.
Good.
Juyu, on my way, she answered. Despite the girls being able to use their wings to move faster, Drongo was the first to arrive. Stark was on the ground, still in his armor, his face pale and sweaty. The stench of vomit assaulted Drongo's nose as he walked closer. Janet was kneeling next to Stark, with a hand on his shoulder. After a moment, Drongo realized that she was steadying him, because Stark couldn't even sit upright. Thor was only a few steps away from them, but his face was turned towards the ocean. Drongo only saw his profile, but it was enough to notice the tense anger on it. The way he was clutching his hammer was also quite a significant tell. It was not too complicated to draw conclusions from that, because there were only a few things that would affect both Stark and Thor this strongly, and on the top of that list was Loki. Drongo was not too keen to think about that, so for the moment he focused on Stark instead. Janet stood up and backed away when Drongo crouched down next to the man.
Stark, you need to tell me what is wrong with you,
he said. Being straightforward was always the best option with him.
Day and I,
Stark said faintly, squeezing his eyes shut as if in pain.
You were connected at the time of the collision?
Drongo guessed. Stark was quite a master at flying with the Iron Mage. Not much could have caused him damage or injury while navigating the ship. Stark nodded, and it made Drongo sigh.
You need to be examined,
he said, but Stark was already shaking his head. Drongo put his hand on his shoulder more firmly.
This is not up for debate,
he told him seriously.
It would not take much for me to overpower you, and believe me, I will not hesitate to do so if you insist on being stubborn.
I'm not... Drongo, he's gone.
Loki,
Drongo said. Stark nodded again, the motion making him squeeze his eyes shut again. What do you mean, gone? They all turned around to see Hatchet, Juyu, and B standing not that far away from them. They must have just landed on the beach. Hatchet's face already spoke louder than 1,000 words, burning eyes and a careful blankness. It was not a good combination when it came to Hatchet. Gone where? Where is he? Hatchet asked again, walking closer.
He was on the ship,
Stark said.
the other ship, and now...
He was supposed to get out of there as soon as the dome fell, Hatchet said.
You think I don't know that?
Stark snapped back at him.
Things went wrong. He was captured. Really captured. You would know that if you would keep your communicator on.
I didn't turn it off! I lost the stupid thing! Hatchet yelled. He ran his hands through his hair in frustration, then turned away, his eyes immediately falling on the still sinking wreck of the Iron Mage. His jaw tightened in anger. And what exactly were you thinking with this? He asked from Stark, gesturing at the ship.
It's not like I had many options,
Stark replied. He still did not look well, but at least it didn't seem like he was going to topple over without support. Hatchet just let out an angry noise, something between a hiss and a groan, and he turned away. He was practically vibrating with tension. Drongo wouldn't have been surprised if his hands were to flicker with magic soon. What are we going to do? Juyu asked.
Oh, if ain't that a brilliant question!
Hatchet said.
Got any more smart plans, Stark? Like making the humans shoot at the ship while Loki was still inside? Or using the Iron Mage as a battering ram? Losing our only way to follow the other?
You were not exactly there to suggest alternatives, Stark said.
I was doing my part! Hedgett yelled. You should have done yours!
The way Stark remained silent instead of arguing further told Drongo plenty about his state of mind. Bee frowned deeply at his lack of reaction as well. Her face looked both concerned and disapproving. Juyu just looked tense, like she wanted to be angry, but did not know whom to be angry at, so she just stood in silence, keeping it all inside.
You are helping no one.
Thor told Hedgett, which of course made the elf spin around to glare at him.
Don't you dare try placating me, Odysseus!
He told him angrily.
I'm warning you to not lose your head, Thor said. You are just wasting our time.
There is nothing to waste! We cannot follow them! Stark just trashed our ship and the Bifrost does not reach beyond the 9 realms!
Thor looked at him for a single moment, then lifted his chin almost as a challenge.
For all you claim to be his dear friend, you are very quick to give up on my brother,
he said. Hedgett's face was contorted in rage within a second, and the magic was immediately burning at the tips of his fingers. Thor expected to be attacked. It was clear from his stance and how he gripped his hammer. Up until this point, Drongo was not sure about the extent of his anger, but now he knew. And he was certainly no better than Hedgett, searching for an outlet for his wrath if he couldn't strike down the true culprits. Before Hedgett could charge, though, he was yanked backwards. Bee gripped his shirt tightly, not letting him take a step forward.
Enough,
she said sternly. Hedgett was already opening his mouth, probably to yell back, which would have made Drongo intervene as well, but Bee did not let him talk.
Look at yourselves. What would Loki think if he saw you right now? Tearing at each other's throats like this.
It was enough to make Hedgett give up on the fight, at least for now. He relaxed, even if only marginally. Thor's stance changed as well, and he let his hammer hang more loosely in his hand. Bee let go of Hedgett's shirt, but she did not stop staring at him.
Get a hold of yourself,
she told him. Then she shifted her gaze to look at Thor.
I don't care how angry you are. Stop provoking him. And you,
she turned to look at Stark,
better start thinking, because we have to figure out how to go after Loki. How?
Hedgett asked.
Our only ship is junk at the bottom of the ocean.
I'm not sure the Iron Mage would have been of much help anyway,
Drongo said.
I saw how that ship left. It had a warp drive. We wouldn't have been able to catch up with them.
It would have been better than nothing,
Hedgett said. Warp drive, Stark said quietly. When Drongo looked at him, he was shaking his head like he wanted to clear it. Then his eyes widened and he sucked in a harsh breath. That's it. Warp drive. We're going after him. Crap, my head's a mess.
You need to see a doctor,
Jen interrupted him.
The helicarrier's close.
There is no way in hell I'm going to let S.H.I.E.L.D. anywhere near my brain, Stark said. I am going to need you guys to wrap things up here, though. Capture the rest of the aliens and all that, because we have other things to do.
Steve will want to know what you're up to,
Janice said. Steve can find me later if he's so curious, Stark said as he finally got to his feet. He looked a little unsteady, but overall fine enough.
Fine by me,
Janice shrugged. Her wings started beating quickly, and she lifted up from the ground.
Good luck,
she told them, then took off to head back to the city.
What did you mean just now?
Thor asked.
We have the means to go after Loki.
Stark just stared ahead of himself for a moment, thinking. Drongo was very familiar with that expression. Stark was probably already 12 steps ahead of them. He definitely looked like he had a plan. I'm blaming my possible brain damage for forgetting this, he said in the end. But yeah, we're going after him. Stark insisted they go back to the Drake before he shared more of his plan. Hedgett was the most irritated about it, but since Stark started speaking so confidently about going after Loki, the elf turned significantly more calm and collected. The Drake was surprisingly undamaged, and Stark even found time to compliment Juyu on her parking skills before he started speaking about their course of action. They disconnected their communicators, no longer needing to be in connection with the Avengers.
Okay, so first of all, we won't be able to go right away,
Stark said.
Why not?
Hedgett asked.
Snow White, keep your mouth shut and listen to me for once, alright?
Stark shot him down. Hedgett was not impressed, but he kept quiet.
I don't know how much time I'm going to need to get things done, but it's going to take at least a few days, maybe more.
Does Loki have that much time?
Juyu asked.
He won't be killed right away,
Stark said tightly.
That's not how the other or Thanos do things. They worship death. Killing someone is mercy or even a reward, not punishment.
I'm not sure how much time we have, so we're going to hurry as much as possible.
The implications were not lost on any of them. They might not kill Loki right away, but he would suffer at their hands. It was a stomach-churning thought.
So what is our next step?
Drongo asked. He was more than eager to get things done.
First, we need to know where he is. Hatchet, you said you found Loki with a locator spell when you were searching for him. Can you do that spell again?
With the right ingredients,
Hatchet said. And where can you get those?
Helfheim, Vanaheim.
Asgard, Thor interrupted. You can get everything you need from Asgard. Alright, that's good, Stark said, visibly relaxing some more at hearing that. I know asking you two to work together is not ideal.
Who gives a crap?
Hatchet dismissed the words. It matters not, Thor said at the same time. Stark gave them a weak grin. That's what I like to hear, he said. Get everything you need. Maybe it would be best if you had ingredients for more than one spell, because we'll need to be able to keep track of them.
Sounds good.
Hatchet nodded. We should leave immediately, Thor said. When you get back, go to my Malibu house. Jarvis will let you know where to go from there. We shall return most hastily. Thor nodded seriously, then without warning, he grabbed hold of Hatchet's arm and spun his hammer, taking flight.
Hatchet let out a surprised yelp as they took off, but did not complain otherwise.
What do you need from us? Drongo asked. Get in the Drake and return to Malibu. Find Pepper. You're gonna need her help. Get everything we need for a journey. You know what we always get. Provisions, personal items, medical equipment is the usual drill. Also get down to my workshop. Jarvis will help you assemble the tools I might need. And there are also a lot of weapons still in there.
Do you need anything from the cargo we unloaded from the Iron Mage?
Juyu asked. Nothing. Just prep everything for a single journey. Provisions for at least a few weeks, just in case.
What are you going to do?
B asked.
The impossible,
Stark said. They did not press him for more answers. He looked distracted enough already. He was probably ready to get started instead of wasting his breath on explanations.
Don't forget to get your head looked at, Drongo warned him. I will. Relax. I'm going to need to be firing on all cylinders for the next couple of days. I can't do that if I keep throwing up on myself.
Drongo nodded and hoped Stark was telling the truth. Good luck then, Juyu said.
Yeah, I'm gonna need it, Stark said as he put his helmet back on.
Drongo wasn't sure he was supposed to fly just yet, but he had to trust Stark to know his own limits. So he remained silent and watched as he took off. Days passed with furiously quick preparations and very little sleep. Having something to do that could help them was better than just waiting, but it did not manage to distract them completely from what might be happening to Loki. They were all too tense and too quiet. It was not unusual from B, because although her words returned, she was never prodigal with them. She only spoke when she had something important to say. Juyu's silence was more unusual, but Drongo did not blame her. Things had been hard on them all for a while now. First B's injury, and all it took Hatchet to save her. Now Loki was in the clutches of their enemies. When they asked, Jarvis never told them anything besides that Stark was working diligently. None of them wanted to distract him from that just to get answers out of him, so they did not contact him at all. They did what they were told to do with Miss Pepper's help. But as soon as everything was sent off, they gathered their personal belongings, their armors and weapons, and went to join Stark wherever he was. Jarvis gave them the location immediately, and they headed north. The facility they found was enormous. It was clear that it had to be a factory of sorts, with giant buildings, hangars, and even long stretches of airstrips. It looked not unlike a military base to Drongo, even though he only ever saw one, the base in San Diego. Jarvis, what is this place?
Juyu asked as they landed with the Drake.
This is the Stark Industries Advanced Development Facility, also known as the Avian Works, Jarvis provided. The most famous Stark aircrafts, satellites, and missiles were all designed and manufactured here.
What is Stark doing here? She asked then as they gathered everything.
Security will lead you to him right away, Miss Juyu, Jarvis said. Mr. Stark is in Hangar 3.
They watched as the small group of men, dressed very much like the Stark security members they've met so far, marched towards them. Not hostile at all, they were clearly there just to greet them. None of them were even surprised about their inhuman appearance. Sometimes I forget what a big shot Stark is here on this planet,
Juyu said. Drongo nodded because sometimes he forgot as well.
So a ship then?
Juyu asked, turning to look at them.
It sounds like Stark wants to go after them with a ship, but I doubt anyone can build one so quickly. Drongo agreed with that as well. Stark may have said that he needed to do the impossible, but this was beyond even that.
One way to find out,
He said as he followed the men inside. Stark! Juyu yelled when the inventor failed to notice them for long moments. The man finally swirled around, turning his back on the holographic display he was looking at. He looked incredibly exhausted. There was a feverish look in his eyes that had to come from lack of sleep, and the dark circles under his eyes just made him look worse. The stubble on his face said that he did not shave in the past couple of days either. There was a man standing next to him, but he resumed his work only after a quick glance at them.
Oh good, you got here first. Cap and some others are coming too. They should be here any moment now.
Are they coming with us? Jiyu asked as she walked closer.
Stark snorted. No, he dismissed the idea right away. I'm sure they're more than happy to be rid of one of their problems.
But we are going after Loki, right?
B asked. Stark turned to look at them again. The glint in his eyes was determined, despite the tiredness in it.
Yes, we are. We just need to wait for Hadget to get back with his ingredients. And how exactly are we going to go after them?
Drongo asked.
Patience, Stark said. We're almost ready, then you'll see.
With that, he turned back to the displays.
Who's he?
Drongo nodded at the man working next to Stark.
Dr. Gray Armand, Stark said. He works for me just like everyone else in this place.
The man in question looked up to nod at them in greeting, but went back to work without a word immediately after. How's your head? Jiyu asked.
It's fine. I'm fine.
Stark answered a little too quickly.
I'm not brain damaged, obviously, and the rest is nothing some Moltrain can't handle.
So if the Avengers are not coming with us, why are they coming here?
Jiyu asked him. Because on this freaking planet, everybody wants to know everything. Stark said, I gotta get back to some serious work. I'll help you,
Drongo offered. And what are we supposed to do? Jiyu asked.
We'll wait for the Avengers.
Stark told the girls as he walked away, a small tablet in his hand. He wasn't really paying attention to them, just what he was reading.
They shouldn't come inside here. Stall them until I can get back outside.
Dr. Armand quickly followed him towards the wall that separated the smaller area from the rest of the hangar.
We can't afford them to distract Stark right now,
Drongo added quietly.
Whether they have questions or need information, they could wait. We have our own priorities.
Loki is our priority,
B said. Drongo gave her a smile.
Exactly. So make sure the Avengers understand that.
You got it! Jiyu nodded as they parted ways.
Stark, be honest with me. Is it a ship you've been working on?
Drongo asked when he finally caught up with the man.
Because not to discourage you, but not even you can build a suitable vessel in a matter of days.
First of all, it's not like you to underestimate me, Stark said, finally turning around to face Drongo again.
And secondly, I did it to start working on this now.
The large dividing door slid open immediately as Dr. Armand entered a code to the panel on the side, and Drongo was left to stare as the view was revealed to him. He was not someone to be surprised easily, but he was truly speechless when he looked around. Dozens or more humans were hurrying around doing their work around a ship. An actual ship!
How is this possible?
He asked as he took a few steps closer. The ship was not that large, but it was at least as big as the Iron Mage. It was mostly golden, but he could see how the humans working around it were lifting giant pieces of darker metal up with cranes and winches. Under the sharp spotlights, it was easy to see that they were using Allendor.
How?
He asked then, truly stunned.
Okay, remember when we got back and I got all my company divisions to start working on something? The Berlin HQ got the solar panels, Beijing the air filters, and so on. Well, I wanted the avian works here to focus on the more space travel related things. They got the artificial gravity generator and the warp drive. Confidentially, of course. You started to build a new ship, and you have not said a word,
Drongo said. Not that Stark had to inform them of everything he did with his company, but building a ship was quite a significant project.
That's his thing. I didn't,
Stark said right away and moved to stand before Drongo.
A few weeks after the guys here got the plans, they told me that they couldn't test the prototypes properly on the ground, that they needed a custom aircraft. So I said, okay, go for it, but this was not meant to be a spaceship, it's a high-altitude aircraft. That's why I didn't think of it right away, because it was not designed for space travel, just to test the prototypes of the artificial gravity generator and the warp drive. But we can use it now?
Drongo asked.
That's what I've been doing these past days.
Stark said, almost yelled, really. It was both excitement and exhaustion. He was talking frantically. Stark gestured with his hands, and a few displays appeared in front of them. They were the blueprints for the plane.
This baby here is one of the largest high-altitude aircrafts there is. Stark started, but I had to upgrade it, had to make it capable of space travel. You're using the rest of our Allendor to strengthen the plane's exoskeleton, Drongo concluded. Yes, turning it into a spacecraft. Stark agreed vehemently. I did insist on gold titanium alloy when the plane was being built, which is so freaking lucky because otherwise this wouldn't work at all. Now we have to strengthen the body with Allendor. He turned around and enlarged one of the displays. Look, here and here, then here and here. It's so we can enter an atmosphere without burning, and of course we don't want to be ripped apart when we activate the warp drive, so... But is it going to work? Drongo asked. Yeah. Yes, it has to. I did the calculations like a dozen times. Jarvis did the calculations a dozen times, and I had like 10 top experts working on it non-stop for 3 days. It would be best if we could cover the whole frame with Allendor, but we don't have enough for that, and we don't have time to get more. I planned to do that when I finally built a new ship, get more Allendor from somewhere, and make this properly instead of... He gestured at the ship at large, then sighed. It's the best I've got. Drongo stepped forward and put a hand on his shoulder. It is more than enough, Stark, he said. If it can take us where we need to go, then nothing else matters. Stark stared at the ship, and Drongo did too. It was mostly gold, but also covered in deep red Allendor in some places. Drongo had to smile at that a little. It looks like some of the older armors I saw in your workshop. The color scheme was definitely not intentional. Stark huffed tiredly. I guess I'm just fond of materials that already worked out well for me. And I couldn't exactly get my hands on this much adamantium or vibranium in such short notice. So Allendor it is. He fell silent then. The energy that exploded out of him while he was explaining everything to Drongo slowly seeped out of him again. You should rest, Drongo told him. I can't. Stark shook his head right away. Not until... I'll rest once we're on our way. I'll have plenty of time then. Right now we can't afford it. Loki can't afford it. Drongo did not argue with him because he could not bring himself to insist when he understood Stark's reasons so well. Have you named her yet? Drongo asked, changing the subject. Yeah. Stark nodded a little absently. Loki's not here to agree, but I think he would like it. It's... the Aurelian. Drongo looked back at the golden vessel and nodded. He will like it, he agreed. Sir, forgive me the interruption, but Master Hatchet and Thor are on their way to Avian Works, Jarvis told him. Drongo looked up from where he was looking over some numbers. That's good. Stark nodded, focusing on something one of his scientists brought for him on a tablet. Let them inside once they get here. Also, Captain Rogers insists on talking to you, and Colonel Rhodes arrived as well. What is Rhodey doing here? He asked, finally paying attention to his AI. I believe Miss Potts informed him about recent events, Jarvis said. Stark shook his head. Of course you did. Fine. Think you can wrap things up here quickly? He said, turning to the woman still standing next to him. We almost have everything done, she answered. We already began loading your cargo, too. Great. How did the generators look? All tests came back with excellent results, she said. But I really think we should have a few test flights before you attempt a long-distance space journey. No time. Besides, I always run before I walk, Jerry. She looked like she wanted to argue, but then she just grabbed the tablet and walked away. Your confidence is fortunately more reassuring than worrisome, Drongo said. That's because you trust me, big guy, Stark said. That I do, Drongo agreed. I think we've had Captain Rogers and the rest of the Avengers wait long enough, he added. Yeah, Stark sighed as he rubbed his tired eyes. At least it was bright enough inside the hangar that the sudden sunlight was not that irritating when they stepped out. Stark did squint a little and shielded his eyes. He probably hadn't gone outside since he arrived here. Drongo really wanted to worry about his health more, but this was not the time. You took your time, Captain Rogers said right away. Stark scowled at him without answering. Steve did not come alone, of course. His friend Bucky stood firmly by his side, while Bruce just a few steps away from them.
Colonel Rhodes was in his armor, so it must have been what he arrived with. He stood a bit closer to Juyu and B, and he's been obviously talking with the captain up until now. Agent Barton and Agent Romanov stood a little further away by the Quinjet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize your social calls were supposed to be above everything else.
He said then.
What do you want? We're busy.
Stark looked at him for a long moment. How are you feeling, Tony? Colonel Rhodes asked, filling the short silence.
How do you think I feel?
Stark asked in return, getting angry in a heartbeat.
I know, it's a stupid question, but it's kind of obligatory.
Rhodey said.
I'll be fine once we're on our way,
Stark told him.
So you do have a way to go after them?
Steve asked.
Yes, we do,
Stark said.
That's really good news,
Bruce said. So when do we leave?
Juyu asked eagerly.
as soon as Hatchet gets here and gives us a destination,
Stark said.
So you actually have a second spaceship?
Bucky asked.
Because we know your other one is still in the San Diego Bay. S.H.I.E.L.D. locked down the area, but you probably want to get that thing out before they do.
Steve added.
Pepper will handle it. I have other things to worry about. So what do you want?
We're coming with you,
Steve said.
No, you're not,
Stark replied automatically.
Tony. Think about it.
Bruce told him.
Stark looked at him and huffed, shrugging his shoulders. Fine, then Bruce is coming with us.
and so am I.
Colonel Rhodes added.
Rhodey, I wasn't asking,
Rhodey told him firmly.
I'm just telling you in advance as a courtesy. If you're going after this guy to who knows where, I'm coming with you. You're not getting into a mess without me again. I'm gonna be there to cover your ass. Got it?
Stark obviously gave up on arguing with his friend halfway through and nodded. Then he turned back to look at Captain Rogers again.
And why exactly do you want to come?
He asked him.
It's not like you give a crap about Loki.
Look, it's not just about Loki. Yes, you're going after them to get him back, but you're also leaving to deal with the other. You might have the most reason to take him down, but it's not just your fight. We can't just stay on defense forever. Sometimes we need to strike back. He just lost an army and his ship got damaged. This is the right moment for counterattack.
And I go where Cap goes,
Bucky added easily.
Stark contemplated them for a moment, then turned to look at Barton and Romanov.
Are you two gonna insist on coming too?
He asked.
No!
Barton said. It would get a little too crowded, Romanov added.
We can't all go,
Steve said.
We can't leave our home defenseless. Janet, Hank, Sam, Clint, and Natasha will remain in the Avengers Tower. T'Challa is on his way to the USA too. We also have an understanding with Fury at the moment, so S.H.I.E.L.D. will help them out until we get back.
Well, you definitely thought about this,
Stark said.
But you're the leader of the Avengers. Shouldn't you stay then?
Janet is in charge while I'm gone, so they're going to be just fine,
Steve said without a pause.
Come on, Stark, you need the backup, and you know it.
Bucky said.
So gift horses and all that.
This is going to be dangerous. And I don't mean the other. We have a chance to take him down if we're lucky and he's on his own. But if he went back to Thanos, if we get there and the Mad Titan's waiting for us, then it's basically suicide because we don't stand a chance against him. And then we won't be coming back at all.
Rogers crossed his arms over his chest and just stared Stark down with a particular look on his face that showed how much he did not care about the danger.
Fine, what the heck, see yourselves.
Stark gave in after a short staring contest.
But we're leaving as soon as Hatchet gets here, so you're probably too late to pack.
We already packed everything,
Bruce said, gesturing at the Quinjet and probably referring to whatever was inside.
Good, bring it all in then,
Stark said and started walking back in immediately. The rest of them followed, of course. Barton and Romanov came inside the hangar with the rest of them, helping carrying some dark crates that most definitely contained Steve's, Bucky's, and Bruce's belongings. Juyu and B went ahead to the loading area to lend a hand to the Stark Industries employees who were working on getting everything inside, probably just to make themselves useful instead of standing around doing nothing. After a moment, Steve and Bucky followed them. Drongo was standing by Stark's side, looking over the displays. Bruce stayed behind, his eyes curiously roaming the shown data. Drongo was only slightly surprised when Barton approached them.
Hey, Stark,
he greeted quietly.
Little busy here, Barton,
Stark said.
Yeah, I know. Just a minute, all right?
Stark turned to look at him questioningly.
Tony, look, I can't go with you,
he said.
It's fine, Stark said. Like Cap said, some people need to stay behind.
No, listen, it's not just that.
Barton ran his fingers through his short hair.
When you bring him back, I'll play nice, okay? I won't say a word, I'll accept Aesir and move on, but I can't go chasing after him across the galaxy, risking my life. Not for him. I can't.
Stark took a large breath and looked up at the ceiling for a moment. Clint, I get it, he said, then turning his head back to look at the other man. And it's fine. Barton nodded and averted his gaze, looking at the Aurelian for a moment.
Yeah, so good luck then,
he said, slowly backing away.
Come back in one piece.
Yeah, thanks. Stark nodded. Bruce and Drongo watched as he walked back to where Agent Romanov was waiting for him. Stark seemed to be lost in thought, so Drongo put his hand on his shoulder again just for a moment. They may not have shared a deep connection, but he still hoped his presence would calm and ground his friend in such a situation.
Sir, Master Hatchet and Thor have arrived,
Jarvis announced. Stark nodded, and with a simple wave, all displays vanished. He looked at their ship again, lifting his chin resolutely. Time to fly, then.